everybody, Bob here. The last couple weeks I've had a number of questions from people who are having difficulties getting images to fit into fixed areas on their websites, which causes them to look odd sometimes. So what I thought I'd do is do a quick discussion on dealing with aspect ratios and how they affect how your images appear on the website and what you can do about it. So let's start by looking at a website, and it's one I like a lot. It's called Exquisite Safaris, and this site makes great use of some really stunning images. And if you get a chance, go take a look at it. It's Exquisite Safaris, here it is up here, .com. That's safaris plural. And take a look at some of the photos that he uses on there. They're really nice. But like a lot of websites or a lot of themes, this one makes use of a slider or rotating images. And as with many of them, they tend to keep the height rather short, and they tend to make them wide. And that's to free up space for what they call above the fold. That's everything above the bottom of your screen. That's old newspaper terminology. So you want as much to be visible above the fold as possible. If we were to make this more of a standard aspect ratio of like 8 by 10 or 4 by 6, it would take up a lot of the space above the fold. But so what happens in here is this space is 958 pixels wide and 328 pixels high, which is kind of an odd size space to get things to fit in. And I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but some of these pictures look a little odd. So I'm going to go over here to Photoshop. I'll just show you one of them. This is one of the photos. It's 958 by 328 high. And it looks a little funny, doesn't it? These people look kind of squash. They're obviously in great shape and they're slim, but they look a little, just a little squished. And let me tell you why that happens. Let's go over here. Okay, aspect ratio is nothing but the ratio of one side to the other, the width to the height. In this case, this is a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, so this should look pretty familiar to you, this shape. This is the shape of most new television sets here in the US, 16 by 9. This box down here is a 4 by 3 aspect ratio, so it would be 4 inches wide by 3 inches high, or 12 inches wide by 9 inches high, 4 by 3 ratio. So I'm going to drag this up here, and if you have a widescreen television, you've probably seen this happen. If you're watching a movie or an older television show, you'll have an option, what they call letterbox, which they'll fit the program into the box and then put a little black lines on either side. Or you can go in widescreen mode, which actually takes this and it stretches it out from side to side, which gives you this effect. It's not real apparent, but it just looks a little odd. In fact, it can make a supermodel's butt look big. I mean, everybody looks a little fat in widescreen mode. I know I don't want to be in widescreen mode. I have a hard enough time in normal mode. So this is what happens. And in photography, everything is a trade-off. So let me give you an extreme example of what happens. So here's a photo taken on a normal point-and-shoot camera, and it's like a 6 by 4 aspect ratio. And say we wanted to fit it in this box here. What would we do? Well, in Photoshop, we can do, and you can do this in really any image editor. In Photoshop, we have a command called File, and then Save for Web and Devices, which is really nice because you can actually, save images even if they're in the PSD file and they're still being edited. So you can save it as JPEG or whatever. I'm going to say this is a JPEG. Okay, we have 958 pixels wide, but look, it's 719 high. Well, we've only got 328 pixels. If I change this to 328, it's going to change this accordingly because it's locked, see? So you can check this little link, which unlinks them. I'll make this 328. Okay, and if we go to save it, and I'm not going to save it, I'll just show you what it would look like. It looks like this. Now that looks pretty weird. It's taken all the pixels and squashed them down, squashed them from the top and squashed them from the bottom, which made it stretch out unnaturally. Now we could do the same thing on a landscape. Okay, here's this image of a car crossing a bridge, and it's not going to fit. So if I squashed it down like I showed you, here's what would happen. Now that wouldn't look too bad, especially if the car wasn't in there, because we have a frame of reference for the car, and we know cars aren't normally weird looking like that. So if we took that out, it would probably look okay. So you have some options here. When you're trying to fit something into this odd space, you can squash them like they did here, or squash it like we did here, or instead you can crop it. So in Photoshop, if I go to the crop tool, what we want to do is we want to actually set a width and a height. So here I put in 958 high, 328 wide, and if I take the crop tool and I just start to go edge to edge, notice, see, it keeps that aspect ratio, that skinny, that long and short aspect ratio. So if I take it from edge to edge, I get the whole space. Now this is what I have to work with. I can move it up or down. I'm going to take it right here, and then I just right click and crop. Sorry, don't have a lot of control here. Okay, and that's what our image looks like. Let's go over here. I actually placed this into a slider. I did it on our site here. Okay, here's the cropped image. There's the squished image. So you can make a choice. With people, it's not so obvious. So when it comes down to having to do this, you have to be very selective of your images. You just can't take any image and crop into it or squash it. What you want to do is take an image that has most of the stuff that's going on is in a long and skinny area. If there was a lot of interesting things up here and down here, then maybe you wouldn't want to use that image. But for example, if we look at this one wouldn't work good in there at all. If we tried to crop it to that aspect ratio, well, we're just going to have two heads. If I crop that, it's not going to look very good. So not a good choice for us. Squashing it down is not a good option either. So what we would want would be another image that was maybe taken from farther away, and then we could crop into it and get the space. So you have to take a hard look. Now a lot of photographers don't like you to mess with their work because they spend a lot of time getting it to look the way they want. And if you have a license image, you want to make sure you have a license or your license enables you to alter the work. Some do not allow you to do it. But it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of thought, but the payoff is really big with a beautiful site. And if you want to see a good example, take a look at many of the photos on exquisitesafaris.com, and you'll see the result of the choice of choosing some really good images. I've got some work to do here to correct a few of these, but otherwise there's some really neat stuff on there. And I'll just pick one at random here. Castles. Beautiful stuff. Okay, that's all for now. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you again in our next video.